Hey painting friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stoof, and today we're gonna start part 1 of a painting tutorial to recreate this moose painting right here. This is going to be an acrylic painting tutorial. We're using acrylic paint on canvas for this one. You're welcome to try this with oil paint. It may just take you a little bit longer to do the layering. But in part 1, we're gonna focus on getting the background filled in and getting like a base, more of like the shadowy tone layer for the moose, getting the shapes and just like the darker values. And then in part 2, we're going to come back and brighten up these antlers, add more detail to the features in the face, and then start to add some more highlights and details to the body of the moose. While you're here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any more of my fun painting tutorials like this one. So this is going to be a 2-part tutorial. We're going to start part 1 right now. Alright, for our acrylic paint colors today, we have ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, titanium white, raw sienna, burnt sienna, phthalo blue, light ultramarine blue, prussian green, vivid lime green, portrait pink, phthalo green, cadmium-free red light, crimson red, which is a cool red, our burnt umber, and Titan buff, which is just like a beige color. And we have a couple brands here. We have Golden and Liquitex. This is my new painting pal. This is Duke. He's the little hound mix that we adopted, so he's gonna hang out with us today while we paint. Say hello. Yeah. We have a few different brushes. Mostly using flat-tipped and angled brushes today. Our larger brushes, we have a 1/2 inch. We have this angled brush. This one is a number 8. We have 2 number 4 flat tip brushes, 1 number 2, and 1 0 liner brush. We're also using an 11 inch by 14 inch canvas panel. We have a cup of water for rinsing and cleaning off our brushes, and a few Viva paper towels for cleaning off our brushes as well with the paint. Alright, to get started with this one, I'm first just getting a little water with some burnt umber, and we're just gonna eyeball like every 3.5 inches here. I would usually use a tape measure, but my tape measure is downstairs, and at this point I can eyeball it close enough. I've got a quick little grid there, just kind of separating this into 3.5 inch segments, and now I could start to kind of sketch out the moose. For this painting, we're going to start out with the moose's head, pretending like his antlers aren't there. Or his ears for now, for that matter. And they have a really long head. If you want to start with something simple, if you have the same kind of grid, just start with like a, ovally shape where it's a little bit more narrow at the base than the top of the head. And then you can kind of start to define the features more. About here is where he's got some eyes. His nose is about here. And once we got that basic shape, we can start to get his antlers. So his antlers just kind of come right off of his head, a little bit like that. And then for the antlers, the shape is pretty tricky. There are some like antlers coming off of the main rack, so first let's just kind of focus on the general shape. So we've got a piece that comes out, and then we've got it comes up right here for a little bit, and then we've got like a big fan shape basically. So it goes up like this, and then comes down like that. Just like the general shape, that's what we're looking at there. And then I can even move this a little closer. For this side, same thing. It's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. Got this, comes back up. But you do want it to be almost the same height. Maybe not exactly, but kind of around that same height. And then, oh, I don't like this one a little shorter. It gets a little more narrow here. And now you want to check your proportions to make sure this makes sense so far. So looking at our grid, the head is, this is one little square here. So you see I made a square. So you can see the head is a little bit bigger than one of the squares. And then looking at the antlers are also, they're about the same size as the head, maybe just a little bit bigger, taller. So check your proportions there to make sure that's about right. And then you can keep moving forward. Now we can start to, quickly I guess we'll just add the ears. Ears are pretty simple. These are such interesting looking animals. All right, and now we can get these antlers a little more defined. So we've got these spikes. If anyone knows the scientific term for these, leave that in the comments so we know. Not familiar with moose anatomy. And some of them start to kind of curve in here, which will work on our highlights, or what our highlights and shadows are, what will define that for us. We've got an antler here, turns in, and then we've got an antler here. That kind of goes up like this, over. And then on this side, we've got our little spikes at the top. A few more spikes here, coming in. And we'll make this one go like this. This one's here. Kind of want this one to come up like that, I think. Do that. There, okay. So we got his antlers in, we got his ears, we got his face in general, and then he's got like a tuft of fur back here, just kind of blowing in the wind. And then we got to get the rest of his body. So he's got a pretty stocky body. We can see his chest kind of right around him, comes down to here. Oh yeah, they've got this, forget what this thing's called. It's like tuft of extra skin with fur on it. Is it a dewlap? Is that called a dewlap? Make this come out a little more here. And just meet back up with this shape there. So we'll make his dewlap come down a little more. Got this little piece there too. And then, so we've got his chest now. Let's get a little more of his legs. So he's got really muscular looking legs that are kind of covered up by some grasses down here. So I'm just going to quickly do this so we can see we have grasses in the foreground. We'll make the grass come up a little higher over here. And then this moose has an attitude right now, the way I painted his eyes, but we're just blocking in shapes for now. All right, and then this is another muscular looking arm. And we're gonna make them look more muscular by where we add our highlights and shadows on the body. All right, now let's keep working on the moose's body here. So back here we've got just a little bit of his back showing, and then his moose tushy is back here. Got another little spot there where it comes in. And then there. And this leg's just gonna come off right here. Have a little bit more muscle and tone there. And there's another leg back here. All right, and then we'll get our shadows in there that'll make that shape just make more sense. But for now, that's the general sketch for the moose. So I just sketched that with thinned down paint. And now we're gonna fill in the background, and then we'll start to fill in all the details on the moose. To get started with the background, I'm just using my large flat tip brush. I guess it's kind of like filbert brush shaped, but it's been used so much that it's, you know, it is what it is. It's just it doesn't matter what brush you use. I just wouldn't really recommend using a round brush. I would recommend a flat or a filbert brush for the background. So we're going to start with our light blue, ultramarine blue with ultramarine blue and a little phthalo blue. Just put a little bit of that in here, maybe mix some white in there, a little bit of umber. And I'm keeping the background kind of blurry, so we draw all of our attention onto the moose. I do want to get a good bit of color in here, and I want to have a darker background than all of the light on the moose's antlers so that we can draw all of our attention right on the moose. So I'm just mixing some browns, purples, and blues together for now. Basically just got this forest line back here. And if you cover up where you had antlers a little bit, that's okay, because you'll figure it back out again later. We really just want to make sure we're not leaving any white space. And we mix a little bit of our sienna in there. More of our light blue. One more phthalo blue in there too. All right, that looks good. Gonna take a little more phthalo with white. Just brighten up a couple little sections in here, like it's like some sky peeking through the trees type of thing. And again, we're using this larger brush to just loosely kind of paint in some detail, but nothing sharp. We want everything to have like fluidity to it. You can make some kind of look like trees. Just make sure you blur it out by going back over it a couple times so you don't have anything too stiff. You want all of your background to be blurry. And take a little more white with some burnt sienna. A little portrait pink in there. And just blurring everything out. So a little bit of white with our light blue, our ultramarine blue. And I'll take some dioxazine purple with some cadmium-free red light. Just start to add a little bit of purple in here, like we've got some bushes that are that more purpley color. Then we'll take some more brown with ultramarine. Start to build up a little more color as we're getting closer to the foreground here. All right, and then we're going to take some phthalo green with our vivid lime green and our light blue and some Titan. Start to add those sage plants back here, and where things are starting to get a little bit more in focus, but not too much. Still keeping it pretty loose. And blurry, keeping everything blurry. While we're putting that down, I'm going to take some of my burnt sienna and some vivid lime green, start to build up some of the warmer colors in here. Maybe mix a little bit of purple in there. Some more umber, phthalo blue, phthalo green. Again, you really want to make sure you're getting good coverage, not leaving any white space. Mix a little Prussian in there, more ultramarine, a little purple. So I'm trying to build up like some layers of shadows in the grass and then some highlights too. Make it look like we've got some layers. Take some more of that ultramarine and brown here, a little purple, phthalo. Just keep it nice and dark. Kind of want to lighten up some of the foreground, but start with the dark and build up highlights later. Like some Titan buff right in here with the burnt sienna color, or raw sienna. Raw sienna is what this one is. So I'm mixing portrait pink, phthalo green, my light ultramarine blue, and my vivid lime green. And this is a nice like sage green color. And you got like a dark, shadowy brownish blue in these, which you can kind of build up. Let's do a little umber and phthalo and ultramarine blue. Just build up shadows again in a couple spots. Can build up our colors and our highlights. A few spots as well. Still try to keep it kind of blurry and soft, out of focus, if you can. And I'll take some Titan, some light blue, and do a little more grassy looking stuff here. Build up our shadows a little more right in here. Get more phthalo blue. All right, now I'm happy with the background. We're gonna put that brush down and we're gonna switch to our number 8 flat tip brush. And I'm gonna start to block in some of the mousse here. So let's start with the body. So we're gonna mix some umber with ultramarine, a little phthalo blue as well, and a little white. And it gives us a nice dark color. If you have black and you want to use black, you can, but black tends to flatten things out if you use it too much. You want to try to stick to creating your own dark, neutral colors. And I'm just going to put this layer in here first, just so we have a nice base. Mixed a little bit of white in there too, as you can see. And we're going to mix a little bit of burnt umber, or burnt sienna for back here. He's got some fur. You can do little sweeping motions with your brush like this to make it look like his fur is there. And this is just our base layer for the fur and or hair. We're gonna come back and we're gonna have to do some more to this. But for now, I'm just mixing. Now I just mixed ultramarine, phthalo blue, and dioxazine purple with white. And I'm just gonna put a couple little highlights in here so I know a little more purple there where the moose's highlights are on his fur. Just a couple little ones there. Mix a little sienna with our white and purple. Got even warmer highlights here. This part of the moose. And more umber for this leg. This one's got lots of highlights on it. Taking some more brown, get his dewlap. Filling up our darker colors again here. Take a little more umber over here. A lot more umber and purple. Okay, so we got, in general, we got his body going there. And then we're going to take some more purple with our umber, some white. This is a good color for right here. A little more sienna, white, and burnt sienna too. And then we want our dark color right here where his nose is. And we want dark where the eyes are too. And we'll take some brown. Okay, for the ears we can mix some white with purple and brown. Let's get the shape first. I'm gonna take some whites and my burnt sienna, a little tighten buff, and raw sienna, and I'm just gonna add some highlights on this fur there, and I'm gonna take some white and I want to add some highlights on the ear. While the paint's still wet, I can kind of get it to look more, it's a little easier to blend, you know. All right, taking some sienna. And he's kind of got a fuzzy head here, so you can just like pat around with your brush to get that look. Hold the brush at different angles. And then it kind of fades into a darker color right here. And then more of our siennas with tighten buff. And let's do a little red. And take some whites. This section here is pretty light. Take more sienna. And we'll let this transition down with some purple and burnt sienna. It's a little darker over here. Take some white, mix with our ultramarine blue and some purple. A little more white. There's a little highlight there too on the top of his nose. Go back to the brown. And now I'm going to put that brush away and switch to a smaller brush because we're starting to get into more of the details here. So I'm going to take my raw sienna color and put some of that right here. A little bit right there. Just kind of comes down here. A little more white, let these colors fade into each other. Just pushing all the paint around in different directions is making him look a little more fuzzy. That's what I'm going for. Get a little more of our blue and brown on the sides of his head where there's less light. A little more umber right here. And we'll do some more sienna Over here, the antlers kind of come in to the head. And we're just going to do straight up sienna with umber right here, underside of the antler coming out. Get a little bit of that in there too. And more sienna with tighten. Right here. You can actually just use like straight up tighten off color here, let that kind of fade in. I mixed a little bit of water because my paints are starting to get less, they're starting to dry out a little bit, so by mixing in some water it helps me to keep working. Mix a little bit of white in here too. Alright, you can start with just tighten if you have this color. If not, just like white with a little bit of burnt umber maybe, just a little bit. Maybe like a hint of ochre in there too. And we can start to blend in a little bit of umber, just blending out of my palette with a little bit of water to thin that down, and then you can start to add in your antlers. And then blend that in to your Titan buff color. And you can just kind of keep going up and down with the brush, kind of carry that color down. You want it to look a little bit streaky and puffy like the bone. Give that textured look of, it's not like a perfectly smooth antler. Mix a little bit of sienna, burnt sienna with our umber over here. Now you want to get a nice outline of the antler. Got a really dark one right here. And we got another dark one. I guess we could do like an outline kind of at the tops of these. Just get a little bit of this darker color to outline. This is helping the antlers to separate from the background a little more too, because our background's pretty dark. Mix in a little bit of my purple with my siennas. Come back to the Titan. Behind the antler. So we'll do that too. We'll get this. And just want to kind of play around with this antler shape over here. Whoop. Yeah, I like that better. Take a little more of our siennas. They're looking good. And we're going to start working on this one, just starting out with that pure Titan color. Okay, go back to our burnt sienna and umber color for the, whoa, let's get a little more raw sienna in there. A little more burnt umber. Okay, I'm gonna touch up the background a little more over here too. All right. More phthalo, purple, white. Our light blue, ultramarine blue color. Just gonna build up a few more of my highlights here. A little more purple, a little red. I'm just going back and forth with the brush like this to get those, very gently to get the look of fur, highlights on fur. Mixing my burnt sienna with some white and the colors I just had on the brush to get another little highlight on the back area. And we'll mix it back into our nice violet color. So some purple with our light ultramarine blue. A little bit of white too. That's a nice color for right here. Just very, very gently pressing to get these highlights. Mix a little bit of blue in there too. You want to have more white and like lightish brownish colored highlights on top. The hairs are even kind of facing a different direction. And they start to come down, face down. Take more reddish. Just gonna blend this over by the Titan buff color. Actually, I'm just gonna take like red and brown. Red and umber. So they've got a lot of like reddish tones on this side. Maybe like a hint in here, not too much, but just a little bit. Now purple and umber down here. And then let's go back to our little sienna color. So I'm kind of bouncing around at this point, wherever my eye takes me for something that needs some attention. Mixing my raw sienna with white while I still had a little blue on my brush. little bit of that coloration up here too. It's got these two really dark spots. So the nose comes here. Then there's these two spots right here. Get like a little bit of darker colors here. And then we need some little highlight right here under the eye. Gonna mix tighten with my raw sienna. Mix a little bit of purple in there. And I'll take some more straight up umber, just darken this area. A little more of our shadowy colors for the fur coming back in here. Got more blue over here. I'm just gonna make some more adjustments with the background colors. I want his body to be a little more defined, just like the shape of his muscles. And this is also warming up our foreground a little more, which is always nice. Mixing some purple with our burnt sienna and a little bit of green. Let's mix some lime green in there too, just to mute that down a bit. Then we can add more of these pretty colors. Let's make this actually be more shadowy back here. Mix our phthalo green with our purple, umber. Need more phthalo green. And some white, or portrait pink. And then we'll take our portrait pink with our lime green and phthalo green. A little bit of that light ultramarine blue if we still have some. Then like very gently blend this in to our sage. All right, we need more of our lighter purplish blue back here.